Hello. Welcome to my first attempt at doing video for my Dual Life Perspective series for the second half of 2020. There's a lot of firsts going on here. This is the first time I've used this particular webcam and microphone setup. I've noticed that the sound is a little bit more sensitive, so I've changed rooms and I've kind of set myself up here in a way that I think things look good in terms of the visuals. I mean, I could be like closer, maybe. And my background is not super exciting at the moment, but that's okay. It's a learn as I go thing. So let's talk about July through December. I'm not going to get too deep into the heaviness on this particular video because I think the latter half of 2020, for the most part, was much lighter for me. I would say on the whole that 2020 has been a pretty good year for me in the local. Not necessarily the country as a whole, and certainly not for everybody. But I have tried to do what I can to try to heal, to try to learn, to try to evolve, I guess, into the best version of myself. And part of that has been doing these videos. And I think that doing these has been really helpful for me on levels that I'm still figuring out, but I think it's helping my confidence and it's helping me just feel much more comfortable doing this type of stuff. And it's also helping the Levels Plus because I just haven't really felt like writing as much this latter half of the year. That's kind of why Levels Plus Weekly started, was because I was feeling like I didn't want to write very long reviews anymore. And writing big pieces outside of a few things just didn't really happen a lot. So I'm feeling like doing some video is helping me engage better with this blog, and it's also helping my brain heal and recover. Without regurgitating stuff that's happened in the past, I am mostly finally done with healing from my traumatic event a few years ago. And part of how I've been able to do that is through Reiki. And I mentioned Reiki very briefly at the end of the last Dual Life Perspective, but I'll get into a little bit more here as best as I can. So Reiki is a Japanese practice of manipulating energy. And I was attuned to level 1 by my best friend who's a Reiki master late June, early July. I can't quite remember the exact date. Before that, Reiki helped me discover how clouded my brain was from depression and other just stuff. Like it just builds up in my head. And Reiki has helped me moderate that depression. It's helped me moderate the fog that it helps create, depression helps create. And being able to do Reiki on my own has been really beneficial. Why do you suddenly burst in here with violence, Finn? Yeah. Outside of Reiki, I've had a really good 2020, honestly, in this latter half. I published 2 books, Maya Moments and Zenobia. Both of those are huge accomplishments. I've always wanted to publish something. And I finally did it, and it's really cool. I'm really pleased that both of those are out there. And I've got 3 books I'm planning for 2021. First in Frequent Fantasy, Evolve, which is an art book of my art from 1995, 94, yeah. 94 to the present, that I'm really excited to get started on. And then I've also got Famicom, which I may rename, but I've talked about that before on Levels Plus Weekly, so I won't get too deep into the new projects, but I'm very excited. First of Frequent Fantasy is almost done. My hope is that I'm going to take some time off in January to finish that up. I also published a couple really insightful essays on Beyond Good and Evil and Ubisoft following the sexual abuse scandal that happened over the summer, where I got published on Critical Distance. And that's always been one of those pie in the sky dreams of mine, to be on Critical Distance. They are a site that looks at the best in critical games writing of a particular week, along with doing other features, and I was on there twice. And the first time I didn't even nominate myself. I think that a forum colleague of mine helped with that. And then the second time I submitted an article, and it took a little bit, but it did get selected. So my heart is really full because I've achieved so many of these really amazing publishing accomplishments. I've also been doing an art contest for that very forum. It's been fun, being very imaginative. Of course, Levels Plus Weekly, and doing other videos for Levels Plus. That's been really cool. I'm also doing videos for my book blog. That's also been fun. 2020 has brought so many amazing creative accomplishments and energetic growth and change that I'm really proud of. And I have a feeling that 2021 is just going to continue carrying that for me, and that's great. In other areas, we still have COVID, so that's still a thing. We had the election. That was a thing. Both of those were, well, COVID is just a constant stressor. The election was a major stressor. And unfortunately, it continues to be a minor one because certain people aren't letting it go. So hopefully in a few days, since I'm recording this in early January, we'll finally get all of this riffraff about that done, and we can move forward. What other big things have gone on in my life this latter half? Really, the Reiki's been such a big part. Meditation, yoga, those have been so important to me. Working on books has been big. Doing these videos has been a big part of it. I've been working from home. I'm permanent in my job now, so that's really good. That's great news. There's been a lot of just a lot of good this latter half for me. The world at large certainly has seen its fair share of problems and trouble, but I'm just very thankful and grateful and appreciative that for me, on a local scale, it hasn't been that bad for me. And I'm glad that I can be comfortable and that I can have this time to heal, this time to become my best self. That being said, I'm not going to miss 2020, the year as a whole. The first half has plenty of reasons why I'm not going to be missing 2020 as an entirety. I think the way I'm looking at these last 6 months is I really just started focusing in on myself and trying to make myself feel as comfortable and safe and confident as I could. And I think I've done a lot. I've really done a lot of good work overcoming a lot of residual trauma, a lot of old walls and barriers that were in my head, and knocking those down, and just being much more in my own body and mind, and not running as much as I used to. Just being more aware of my coping mechanisms, being more accepting of what I am, who I am, and being able to do this. I mean, the fact that I'm sitting here in front of a web camera with the intention of putting this on YouTube for other people to watch is it's kind of mind-boggling in a way. I straddle that line between introverted and extroverted, and I'm trying to get a little bit more on that extroverted side where I was several years ago, and this is helping. So thank you for watching and listening to me talk about how my life has gone for the last few months. My social life is doing about as well as it can given these circumstances. I'm trying to branch out a little bit and join a couple other communities that I have not been involved with before, and that's so far going well. It's always just like really uncomfortable at first joining an entirely new group of people, because you just don't know. Even if you've been like hanging out in that space in a lurking fashion. But the community that I decided to join has been really welcoming and nice. So that's really great. I can't say that beyond the election, that was probably the low point, was the amount of stress that was coming out of that. And then of course the residual of all of the stuff that I talk about in my first half post. That has definitely been something that has carried through a little bit into this latter half. But on the whole, for me personally, I've tried to make the most out of this situation. And I just want to thank you for watching and reading and just being a part of my life, no matter who you are, even if you're someone that I know really well, if you're someone who just meandered into this post, if you're someone who found this on YouTube. I just want to say thank you for just being in my space for a little bit, or a lot, depending on who you are. And just partaking what I'm putting out there. It does mean a lot. To end this, I'd like to point out a few things. So one of my other accomplishments in 2020 was starting a Patreon. I've always wanted to do a Patreon, but it just felt like it wasn't appropriate. And I think it's because I undervalued my work. And now that I'm publishing books and actually getting some of these like really, really long wish list, bucket list items out of that bucket and into the real world, I am feeling like it was the right time. So I did launch a Patreon. The link for it is down in the description. I am really excited about starting Famicom and getting really nice photographs of the carts for the book. And I've already started looking at stuff. I'm going to use a bit of my stimulus check to cover some of what I need, but I've got a lot to get, and it's an expensive thing to buy carts, especially NES carts, especially if it's something that's either rare or high profile. So any help that you might feel you could provide to my Patreon would be incredibly appreciated. I am well aware of the state of the world and do not expect anyone to contribute it would just be something I would greatly appreciate if you have the means and the interest in doing so. Certainly do not do it if you have the interest but not the means. The Patreon is something I'm very, very excited to see how that goes over the next year, especially when I actually start getting into Famicom a little bit more on the design front. And I'm hoping to get a tentative design of one of the sections up soon so I can show off how that will look. The blogs I have, they're all doing really well. The art blog probably suffered a bit because I have had some creative plummets. So unsurprising in 2020. Isolate completely, didn't have hardly anything happen this year. I think there was the beginning of the reboot in January, and then it just never came back. Not sure how soon that's going to happen. Isolate is not the world's happiest story, and kind of being in that headspace when there's so much else going on that's kind of hovering in that same level of unhappiness is not a pleasant prospect for me. So I'm not sure when I'll pick that up, but I think I do want to at least draw the characters and see how that goes. Maybe when things settle down a bit more, that can start up again. Almost done with this forum contest, so this webcomic stuff will hopefully pick back up. And something I'd like to try to get into my cycle of 2021 behaviors is going out on walks more. The uncertainty of people has made me not want to be out among them very much anymore, but I need to work on that. Book blog is still going. I've got the 2021 books picked out. I do need to acquire one of them. I'm going to try to really limit the books I pick up in 2021 to, I want to just finish up the first series, but that's not really a topic for Levels Plus, so I'll leave it at that. If you're interested in knowing more, I'll talk about that probably in the January video on the book blog. As for Levels Plus, Levels Weekly will continue. I want to get back into writing a little bit more frequently on Levels Plus. I think that I'm going to really shuffle a lot of the more news items and impression stuff to Levels Plus Weekly, and maybe work on more essays and working on Famicom and Culture Clash. Because I'm feeling like that seems to be what makes the most sense. I think it's more relatable when it's coming out of my mouth versus my fingers into text. I think that doing some more essays / features and moving the essays / features as written and doing more reviews, news, lists on video is going to be better. So that'll probably be what happens there. But that's basically my life in the real. I did write out my virtual life for 2020, and you can check that out below. Unless you are watching this on YouTube, in which case you can go to the post underneath in the description and check it out there. So thank you so much again for tuning in and watching me talk. Happy New Year. Let's have a great 2021. Hope you'll stick around and continue to watch. Have a wonderful day.